Humanity had begun to believe it was safe. After centuries of struggle, war, and rebuilding, Earth had reached a point where its people finally looked upward with hope. The planet had been granted observer status in the Galactic Council, and for the first time, humans could stand in the same chambers as ancient civilizations that had ruled the stars for millennia. Humanity was small, but it was present. It was finally counted. Then the sky burned. The first sign was a distortion detected by the deep space monitoring stations positioned near Jupiter's orbit. At first, operators thought it was an error, some flicker of static caused by solar interference. Then, 12 enormous signatures appeared on their scanners. Their size and velocity dwarfed anything Earth had ever seen before. The alarms spread through every relay station like wildfire. 12 missiles, each one the size of a skyscraper. Each one armed with enough destructive power to wipe out entire cities, perhaps continents. Their course was locked onto Earth. The order went out instantly. Scramble defenses. Fleets stationed in orbit-shifted formation. Automated defense satellites turned their weapons outward, railguns charging as crews loaded interceptors into firing tubes. Across the globe, cities fell into silence as alerts sounded in every home and broadcast screens switched to emergency feeds. Humanity held its breath as the 12 missiles crossed the void between Jupiter and Earth. The first missile was intercepted at the edge of Mars's orbit. A squadron of frigates fired coordinated salvos, detonating it in a blinding flash of light. Cheers rang out in control centers, but they ended quickly. 11 more continued their descent. At the asteroid belt, 2 more were destroyed, ripped apart by concentrated missile fire. Another fell to the heavy guns of a newly built orbital platform near Ceres. But the enemy weapons kept advancing. Each one that slipped through carried death on a scale Earth had never known. As they drew closer, tension gripped every corner of the planet. On the ground, civilians packed shelters. Families gathered in silence, holding on to one another. Soldiers manned consoles with white-knuckled focus, their eyes locked on tracking displays. Political leaders, usually divided, stood shoulder to shoulder in underground bunkers, watching their world hang on the edge of destruction. In orbit, humanity's fleets fought like cornered wolves. Battleships launched railgun barrages, frigates swarmed to intercept, and experimental energy weapons fired until their reactors threatened to overload. Each success brought another explosion of light, another brief moment of relief, but it was never enough. By the time the missiles reached Earth's orbit, 11 had been destroyed. Only one remained. It slipped through a storm of fire, its armor scarred but intact. It cut across the blackness of space and pierced the upper atmosphere in a blazing trail of fire. The world below saw it streaking through the clouds, a falling star that carried death instead of wonder. Panic surged. In cities, people screamed as they pointed to the sky. In shelters, silence turned to sobbing prayers. The war rooms filled with voices shouting over one another, but no order could stop what was coming. Humanity's defenses had run out of time. But Earth still had one chance. A prototype energy lance had been installed weeks earlier on an orbital defense platform. It had never been tested in combat. Some doubted if it could even fire without tearing itself apart. But there was no other option. The order was given. The weapon roared. A brilliant beam of white light lanced through the atmosphere and struck the incoming missile dead center. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the warhead ignited. The explosion was so massive it painted the sky in red and gold, turning night into day and scattering fiery debris high above the clouds. Windows shattered across hundreds of kilometers. Electrical grids surged and failed. For minutes, the planet seemed to shake beneath the fury of the detonation. But the missile never reached the surface. Earth had survived. Billions of people stepped outside their shelters and stared at the sky. Some cried. Others stood in stunned silence, unable to believe their world still existed. In homes, in bunkers, and aboard ships, relief washed over them like a tide. For a brief moment, humanity felt the joy of survival. But that relief quickly hardened into something else: anger. This had not been an accident. There had been no warning, no declaration, no negotiation. Whoever had launched those 12 missiles had not come to conquer or demand tribute. They had come to erase Earth from existence. And they had failed. On that day, humanity changed. The fear that had once kept them cautious was replaced by determination. The leaders of Earth, once divided by politics, now stood united. The fleets of Earth, though battered, prepared for war. Civilians who had believed they were safe under the Galactic Council now understood the truth. If humanity was to survive, it could never rely on others. The day the sky burned would be remembered for centuries, not as the day Earth nearly died, but as the day humanity decided never again to be helpless. Somewhere in the darkness of space, an enemy waited, and soon they would learn what it meant to provoke the full wrath of humanity. The fires in the sky had barely faded when Earth's leaders gathered in a chamber deep beneath Geneva. The images of 12 missiles streaking toward their planet were still replaying across every screen in the world. Every government, every colony, every ship had witnessed how close humanity had come to extinction. There was no debate over what it meant. Someone out there had tried to end them. The Galactic Council convened within hours, demanding calm. Messages poured in from alien delegates urging restraint. Investigations must be conducted, they said. This could have been a misunderstanding, others insisted. Some even suggested the weapons might have been launched by rogue factions, not by any recognized empire. But humanity had not forgotten the sight of that final missile burning through the atmosphere. They had not forgotten the way billions of lives had balanced on a single untested weapon. A misunderstanding could not explain a strike designed to erase an entire planet. General Arya Vey, commander of Earth's defense fleet, stood before the global assembly and spoke words that would echo through history. This was not a mistake. This was an attempt at extermination, and humanity does not forgive extinction. Her voice carried across every colony, every ship, every settlement clinging to the edge of known space. For the first time, all of humanity spoke with one voice. The Council's pleas for patience only fueled Earth's anger. While older civilizations debated, Earth acted. Engineers converted factories overnight into weapons foundries. Shipyards shifted from civilian projects to war production. Research stations tore apart captured fragments of the destroyed missiles, desperate to understand the technology behind them. Scientists worked without rest, trading sleep for progress, their determination sharpened by rage. Earth's colonies followed suit. On Mars, miners volunteered their ships for conversion into gunboats. On Europa, engineers tested new shielding designs. Even the smallest outposts, places with no military significance, raised banners declaring they would no longer stand idle. The galaxy had underestimated humanity before. Many saw them as reckless, impatient, and short-lived compared to civilizations that had ruled for thousands of years. But now, those very traits became their strength. Where other species hesitated, humans surged forward. Where others sought compromise, humans demanded action. Within weeks, Earth's leaders broadcast a message to the galaxy. The speech was delivered in calm tones, but every word carried steel. Earth was attacked without warning. 12 weapons were launched to end our world. We survived, but this was no accident and we will not forget. To those who seek to erase humanity, hear this: you have failed, and we will find you. The message was sent across every channel, translated into every known language. It was not a request for aid. It was not a plea for sympathy. It was a declaration. Humanity was going to war. Reaction across the council chambers was immediate. Some species were horrified. They whispered that humanity was too young, too reckless to wield such fury. Others remained silent, unwilling to challenge the power behind the missiles. A few, quietly and without public acknowledgement, admired Earth's courage. Among ordinary galactic citizens, the message spread faster than official reports. Alien traders carried recordings to frontier outposts, where they were replayed in smoky taverns and bustling markets. People spoke of the humans who had nearly been wiped out but stood tall instead of begging for help. A new reputation began to grow. Humanity was not a weak newcomer, but a species that fought even when outmatched. Meanwhile on Earth, preparations intensified. The Global Assembly authorized the creation of a new fleet, larger than any humanity had ever attempted. Entire industries shifted focus, producing hulls, engines, and weapons at a speed that shocked even their own allies. Shipyards worked around the clock, building not just warships but the infrastructure to sustain a long campaign. Civilians volunteered in staggering numbers. Pilots trained on simulators until their hands blistered. Engineers modified civilian transports into makeshift carriers. Farmers and factory workers signed up to supply the fleets. It was not just the military that prepared for war. It was an entire species. And through it all, the memory of the burning sky drove them forward. Every person who had looked up and seen death falling toward them carried the same thought: never again. The Council tried once more to temper Earth's resolve. They offered investigations, promises of sanctions, and the possibility of negotiations with the suspected attackers. Earth's leaders listened in silence. Then they delivered their final reply. Words will not protect our children. Promises will not defend our homes. The ones who tried to destroy us will face justice, and humanity will deliver it. With that, the Council session ended. The galaxy had hoped humanity would respond with fear, with submission, or at least with hesitation. Instead, Earth had declared defiance. The ones who had launched the 12 missiles remained silent. Perhaps they believed their identity could remain hidden, that Earth would never discover them. But they had made one fatal mistake. They had failed to finish the job. And humanity never forgot. The fires of defiance burned brighter than ever. Humanity was no longer a species on the edge of galactic recognition. It was a species on the brink of war, and every hand on Earth worked toward a single purpose: survival and retaliation. The first step was transformation. Entire industries were repurposed overnight. Automakers began building armored personnel carriers and missile launchers instead of civilian vehicles. Shipyards abandoned cargo freighters and luxury liners, producing fleets of combat vessels in staggering numbers. Factories once dedicated to consumer electronics now forged railgun components, energy shielding arrays, and advanced propulsion systems. Nothing was wasted. Every resource, every material, every human effort was directed toward the war machine. On the orbital shipyards, engineers worked alongside soldiers. Alien technology salvaged from the destroyed missiles and debris became a blueprint for innovation. Humans, though new to interstellar warfare, were relentless learners. They reverse-engineered alien propulsion systems, adapted energy weapons, and experimented with shielding far beyond what their own technology had ever achieved. Nothing was considered impossible. Colonies across the solar system joined the effort. On Mars, the barren landscape was transformed into a sprawling military complex. Mining rigs were converted into metalworks, and domes were reshaped into factories churning out drones, engines, and hull sections. Europa became a research hub, testing advanced energy weapons and experimenting with gravity-defying propulsion systems. Even distant colonies like Titan and Ganymede contributed, converting civilian craft into auxiliary vessels capable of long-range support. The human approach was audacious. While other species had spent centuries perfecting fleets and doctrines, humans improvised, adapted, and learned at unprecedented speed. They combined alien technology with their own innovations, creating hybrid systems that astounded galactic engineers. A ship designed by humans could deploy electronic countermeasures in ways no alien fleet had anticipated, or turn a salvaged alien energy cannon into a weapon capable of obliterating enemy hulls. The fleet itself became a symbol of human ingenuity and audacity. Destroyers bristled with hybrid weapons, carriers launched swarms of automated drones, and experimental dreadnoughts packed more firepower than some entire alien squadrons. The designs were unconventional, unpredictable, and effective. Where other species valued tradition and rigidity, humans embraced risk, knowing that the audacity of their strategies could outmatch raw experience. Every human on Earth and its colonies felt the weight of the coming war. Civilians volunteered in record numbers, joining training programs or lending technical expertise. Soldiers drilled tirelessly, running simulations and tactics exercises that pushed them to the limits of endurance. Pilots practiced complex maneuvers at speeds that older species had once considered reckless. Engineers tested weapons until they overheated, recalibrated, and tested again. Humanity was becoming something the galaxy had never expected. A species willing to throw everything into the fight, with no hesitation, no compromise, and no fear of sacrifice. And yet it was not only the fleet that transformed. Humanity's resolve became its secret weapon. Every family, every settlement, every colony knew why they fought. They had survived the 12 missiles, they had looked death in the eye and pulled back from the brink. That shared memory fueled every decision, every innovation, every deployment. Fear became strategy, desperation became creativity, and survival became vengeance. By the time Earth's new fleet was ready to leave orbit, it was already a legend in the making. Across the galaxy, intelligence channels began reporting strange sightings, unusual vessels deploying unorthodox tactics, drones that seemed to anticipate attacks before they happened, and humans who fought with a determination no one could match. Aliens who had once dismissed humanity as primitive and inexperienced now paused, uncertain how to assess this growing threat. General Aria Vey walked along the deck of the flagship, her gaze fixed on the stars. "They thought they could wipe us out," she said quietly to her officers. "They thought we were weak, they were wrong, and now it is our turn to remind them what it means to survive." Her words echoed across the fleet, carried through communication channels to every ship, every pilot, every soldier. The human war machine was no longer a concept. It was real, and it was ready. It was fast, it was unpredictable, and it was fueled by a species that refused to be underestimated. The galaxy had seen young civilizations rise before, only to fall under the weight of older empires. But humanity was different. They did not wait. They did not hesitate. They forged their power in the heat of urgency, in the aftermath of near annihilation. The ones who had fired 12 missiles at Earth would soon discover the cost of that miscalculation. For now, humanity's fleet waited in orbit, engines humming, shields charged, weapons primed. Every eye turned toward the stars, toward the unknown, toward the enemy that had dared to strike first. And in that moment, the galaxy began to understand that Earth was no longer a spectator. Humanity was coming, and it would not stop until the balance of power had been rewritten. The fleet left Earth orbit under a sky streaked with remnants of humanity's near annihilation. The planet they had barely saved receded behind them, a reminder of why they fought. Every pilot, every soldier, every engineer knew the stakes. Failure was no longer an option. Their first target was a supply convoy belonging to the species that had launched the 12 missiles. Intelligence had tracked the convoy across the outer systems. It was lightly defended, or so the analysts predicted. Humanity intended to test the fleet and send a message. Earth was no longer a species to be underestimated. The humans approached with a combination of precision and audacity. Drones launched from carriers ahead of the fleet, creating false signatures to confuse enemy sensors. Destroyers weaved through asteroid fields, using debris as cover. Even the smallest frigates moved in coordinated patterns designed to mislead and overwhelm. The first engagement was brief, violent, and decisive. Human energy weapons cut through the convoy's shields before the aliens could respond. Railguns shredded supply vessels, while automated drones swarmed to disable the engines of larger ships. The aliens attempted to regroup, but humanity's unconventional tactics left them scattered, disorganized, and vulnerable. Within hours, the convoy was destroyed or captured. Earth did not celebrate. There was no jubilation among the fleet. Instead, there was focus, a cold understanding that this was only the beginning. The first victory had proven something crucial. Humans could fight, and they could win even against a technologically superior foe. Reports of the raid spread quickly. Across the galaxy, other species began to whisper about the humans. Traders, explorers, and even rival military forces noted the speed, efficiency, and boldness of the attack. Humans did not follow the traditional codes of engagement. They took risks that no seasoned civilization would consider. Their willingness to sacrifice, to improvise, and to strike without hesitation made them unpredictable, and that unpredictability was becoming their greatest weapon. Meanwhile, the enemy empire reeled from the loss. The convoy had been meant to resupply distant outposts and reinforce their fleet in the sector closest to Earth. Now, these resources were gone. Communications channels were flooded with reports of human ships attacking in patterns that defied logic. Commanders argued over what they were seeing. Some demanded immediate retaliation. Others warned that underestimating humans could be catastrophic. Humanity, however, was already moving. The first engagement had revealed weaknesses in the enemy's approach: over-reliance on predictable formations, slower decision-making processes, and inflexible technology. Engineers aboard every human ship worked relentlessly to refine tactics, recalibrate weapons, and adjust shields. Pilots practiced daring maneuvers, learning how to exploit every flaw in the alien design. Every defeat the humans inflicted made them stronger, smarter, more relentless. In the wake of the victory, General Aria Vey convened the fleet's command. "This was only the first step," she said, her voice calm but resolute. "They will strike back, they will try to intimidate us, and they will underestimate us again. We cannot give them the chance. Every engagement from now on will remind them that humanity is not a species to be taken lightly." Her words were not empty bravado. Within days, the humans struck again, this time against a lightly defended research station. They used the same combination of strategy and unpredictability. Drones disabled communication arrays, boarding parties captured critical data, and the station's experimental reactors were safely secured for human use. Every victory, every captured vessel, every piece of technology added to humanity's growing arsenal. The humans were learning faster than the aliens could adapt. They turned the enemy's own designs against them, modifying weapons, enhancing propulsion, and integrating alien engineering into human ships. As the first wave of battles concluded, the galaxy could no longer ignore Earth. Reports of the human fleet and the human ingenuity circulated in hushed tones across trade routes and council chambers. Even allied civilizations who had doubted humanity began sending quiet support, supplies, intelligence, and equipment. The humans were no longer alone, but they were still driving the fight. They had taken the first blood and would not relinquish the advantage. For the soldiers and civilians aboard the fleet, the taste of victory was tempered with focus. Every engagement brought lessons. Every destroyed ship reminded them of what was at stake. Humanity's resolve hardened. They were not only fighting to survive, they were fighting to ensure that no one would ever threaten Earth again. By the time the fleet returned to a staging station near Mars, the message was clear across the solar system and beyond. Earth had struck first, and the galaxy had begun to learn a dangerous truth. Humans were fierce, humans were clever, and humans would fight with everything they had to defend their world. The first blood had been spilled, and the enemy would soon understand that underestimating humanity was the gravest mistake they could make. The first victories had sent ripples across the galaxy. Traders, scouts, and even rival species whispered of humans striking with a speed and creativity that no one had expected. But the humans knew better than to celebrate too early. Their successes had provoked a response, and it was only a matter of time before the enemy empire retaliated in full. And retaliate they did. Within weeks, a massive armada emerged from the outskirts of the system closest to Earth. Hundreds of warships, each bristling with weapons designed to crush fleets twice the size of humanity's, moved in precise formations. The enemy had learned from their initial defeats. They reinforced shields, coordinated their maneuvers, and began employing tactics specifically designed to counter human unpredictability. Humanity's fleet detected the incoming armada while still on a patrol mission near Mars. Sensors flagged the massive energy signatures, and the humans realized the scale of the threat. This was no simple strike. It was a deliberate show of force meant to intimidate and destroy the human fleet in one overwhelming blow. General Aryave convened her commanders. "They think they can crush us with sheer numbers," she said, her voice calm yet charged with intensity. "They do not understand us. They never have. Every vessel, every weapon, every human aboard these ships is ready. We will meet them, and we will remind them why they failed to destroy Earth the first time." The first engagement took place in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Human destroyers and frigates used the dense field of rocks as cover, weaving unpredictably between debris while launching decoys and electronic countermeasures. Drones swarmed ahead, disabling enemy sensor arrays and drawing fire away from the main fleet. Alien gunners, accustomed to traditional strategies, found themselves flanked, tricked, and exposed at every turn. Despite the humans' ingenuity, the battle was brutal. Entire squadrons were lost in daring maneuvers, and debris from destroyed vessels littered the void like shattered glass. Civilians who had volunteered for the fleet endured unimaginable strain, yet their resolve never faltered. Every sacrifice, every loss, fueled the collective determination of humanity. On the enemy side, commanders struggled to adapt. Their armada was powerful, but its sheer size slowed reaction times. Humans exploited every weakness, striking swiftly, retreating, and striking again in patterns the aliens could not predict. Boarding parties captured key vessels, and human engineers salvaged alien technology mid-battle, turning enemy weapons against their own forces. The enemy empire's propaganda sought to downplay the defeats, claiming the humans had only survived due to luck or alien assistance. But the truth was evident to all who observed the conflict. Humans were learning faster than any other species in history. They adapted mid-battle, reconfigured tactics, and turned desperation into strategy. Even as Earth's fleet endured losses, morale remained high. Ships that had been heavily damaged were repaired and returned to combat faster than the enemy expected. Pilots pushed the limits of human capability, navigating asteroid fields and debris clouds with precision that seemed impossible. Engineers worked tirelessly, modifying weapons and shielding between sorties. Humanity had turned the enemy's superior numbers into a liability, forcing them into situations where conventional strength could not dominate. Yet the human commanders knew this was only the beginning. The Armada would not be the last wave. The Empire had the resources and the fleets to continue the assault for years if necessary. Humanity's survival depended not just on courage, but on creativity, innovation, and relentless determination. Every skirmish taught them something new. Every narrow escape hardened their strategy. By the time the battle subsided, both sides had suffered losses. Alien commanders retreated to reorganize, stunned that their overwhelming might had been resisted. Humanity's fleet returned to Mars for resupply and repair, carrying a mix of grief and triumph. Each casualty was mourned, yet each victory was celebrated, not for pride, but for survival. General Vey addressed the fleet from the bridge of the flagship. "They struck at us thinking we would break. They will learn that humans do not break. They will learn that we fight with everything we have, and we will never stop until our world is safe." The galaxy had begun to take notice. Allies watched closely, the enemy hesitated, and humans themselves felt the weight of something greater than survival. It was a sense of destiny, a realization that they had become something more than a young species in the stars. They had become a force that could not be ignored. The enemy had struck back, but humanity had endured. And for the first time, the humans were not only defending, they were planning how to take the fight to their attackers. The human fleet had returned from the asteroid belt battered, but victorious. Each skirmish had taught them new lessons, revealed weaknesses in the enemy's armada, and strengthened the determination of every soldier, pilot, and engineer aboard. Yet humanity knew it could not fight this war alone forever. Even the most ingenious strategies had limits, and the enemy empire had resources to sustain prolonged conflict. It was in the shadows that help first appeared. Alien species that had previously dismissed Earth as inconsequential began to offer subtle aid. Intelligence packets slipped through hidden channels, detailing fleet movements, weaknesses, and technology blueprints. Star maps appeared mysteriously, revealing secret routes and supply caches. Small shipments of rare alloys, energy cores, and experimental shielding technology arrived without explanation. To the humans, these gestures were quiet, unseen, but invaluable. Captain Lyra Chen, commanding a frigate patrolling the outer colonies, received a transmission one night that changed the nature of the campaign. The voice was unfamiliar, heavily encrypted, but the message was simple. "Trust your instincts. Use what you can. We are watching." Human commanders quickly realized that the galaxy was beginning to acknowledge the humans' tenacity. Allies who had once feared reprisals from the enemy now quietly supported Earth, providing resources and intelligence while maintaining plausible deniability. The humans learned to trust these hidden hands, even as they worked to uncover the identities of their mysterious benefactors. Meanwhile, the enemy empire continued to press forward, unaware that humans were already leveraging these hidden alliances. While the enemy focused on brute force, the humans struck with ingenuity. Drones deployed from carriers sabotaged supply chains, small strike teams intercepted convoys, and intelligence from allies revealed choke points and weaknesses in the Armada's logistics. Every battle became an opportunity not only to fight, but to learn and to strengthen. Engineers reverse-engineered alien weapons, modifying them for human fleets. Pilots adapted to new maneuvers using intelligence provided by allies. Even civilian volunteers contributed to the war effort, producing supplies, running simulations, and coordinating networks of communications that rivaled any galactic system. The hidden support was not just material, it was psychological. Across the colonies, humans knew they were not entirely alone. Though the alien allies remained unseen, humanity sensed the approval of other civilizations, reinforcing the belief that Earth's defiance was not reckless, but righteous. The morale boost was immeasurable. Humans now understood that they were not only defending their world, but challenging a galactic order that had underestimated them for too long. In the midst of this, General Aria Vey convened her officers aboard the flagship. "We have the tools, the knowledge, and the allies we need to escalate this fight," she said. "But we must not be reckless. Our strength lies in ingenuity, in adaptability, in our ability to strike where they least expect it. We are not just fighting for survival, we are showing the galaxy what humanity is capable of." Her words resonated throughout the fleet. Pilots sharpened their skills, engineers refined weapons systems, and soldiers trained with renewed vigor. Humanity had learned that survival required more than courage. It required alliances, strategy, and the clever use of every resource. Over time, the human fleet began coordinating strikes that would have been impossible without outside support. Ambushes were planned using hidden intelligence. Convoys were intercepted before they could reinforce enemy positions. Ships were repaired and upgraded using parts provided by unseen allies. Each operation increased pressure on the enemy while revealing to the galaxy that humans were capable of sophisticated, coordinated warfare. The effect on the enemy empire was immediate. They had assumed that humanity's victories were anomalies, products of desperation or luck. Now they faced a species that not only learned faster than expected, but also leveraged hidden support to enhance its strength. Confusion rippled through enemy command, forcing them to reconsider every strategy and delay major offensives. Yet the humans knew the shadow aid was temporary. Allies could provide intelligence, supplies, and guidance, but Earth's destiny rested on its own shoulders. Every victory, every innovation, every daring strike was building toward a single truth. Humanity could not only defend itself, it could take the fight to its attackers and claim its place among the stars. As the fleet prepared for its next campaign, the humans looked to the horizon of space, confident, relentless, and aware that the galaxy was beginning to recognize a simple fact. Earth was not just surviving. Humanity was rising, and the wrath of a species that had refused extinction was becoming unstoppable. For years, humanity had prepared. Every victory, every skirmish, every captured vessel had strengthened their fleet and honed their tactics. The solar system had become a fortress, a staging ground for a species that refused to remain passive in the face of annihilation. Now, it was time to take the fight to the enemy's doorstep. The target was the heart of the Empire itself, a system once thought untouchable, where command ships, research facilities, and supply depots formed the core of enemy operations. Intelligence gathered from allies in the shadows revealed weaknesses in the orbital defenses, gaps in fleet coordination, and vulnerabilities in shield design. Humans would exploit them with precision and daring. General Arya Vey addressed the fleet aboard the flagship. They thought they could destroy us with 12 missiles. They thought we were weak, young, and inexperienced. They will soon learn that humanity does not forgive. Humanity does not forget. Humanity does not surrender. Her words were broadcast across every ship, every channel, every communication device. They echoed in the hearts of pilots and soldiers, fueling a determination that no alien fleet could anticipate. Humanity had learned to fight smarter, faster, and more creatively than any other species had expected. The attack began with calculated strikes. Human drones infiltrated communication satellites, creating blind spots and confusion among enemy fleets. Small strike teams disabled key supply depots, leaving repair and refueling stations in ruin. Destroyers and frigates wove through asteroid belts and debris clouds, evading sensors while launching precise attacks on orbital cannons and energy arrays. Every maneuver was designed to undermine the enemy's confidence and expose their vulnerabilities. Then the main fleet advanced. Dreadnoughts, bristling with hybrid weaponry and experimental energy arrays, led the charge. They were accompanied by carriers launching waves of drones, frigates providing cover, and specialized vessels deploying electronic countermeasures to disrupt enemy coordination. The battle unfolded like a storm, overwhelming the defenders before they could organize an effective response. Alien commanders were shocked. They had assumed that humans, young and inexperienced, would still be learning the rules of galactic warfare. Instead, they faced a fleet that combined speed, innovation, and audacity. The humans struck unpredictably, retreating only to strike again from unexpected angles. Every calculated risk paid off, turning the enemy's numerical advantage into a liability. Humanity's boarding parties captured critical command ships. Engineers on board quickly adapted alien systems, turning the enemy's own technology against them. Within days, humans controlled key communication networks, disrupting the Empire's ability to coordinate defenses. Each victory emboldened the fleet further, every captured vessel adding firepower, intelligence, and supplies to the human armada. The civilian volunteers aboard support ships worked tirelessly, repairing damaged hulls, refueling vessels, and maintaining communications. Engineers integrated alien energy arrays into human ships, creating hybrid systems capable of rapid strikes and devastating firepower. Pilots perfected new maneuvers, exploiting enemy blind spots, and using gravitational anomalies to execute attacks that seemed impossible. Across the galaxy, observers whispered of the human fleet's audacity. Traders, scouts, and even rival species marveled at the speed of their advance and the precision of their tactics. The The young species that had once been dismissed as reckless and inexperienced now commanded attention and fear. Humanity was no longer simply surviving, it was imposing its will. Within the enemy empire, panic spread. Commanders debated retreat, but confusion and sabotage hampered coordination. Supplies dwindled and morale plummeted. The humans had not only broken through defenses, they had shattered confidence, exposing the empire to defeat on multiple fronts. Finally, after weeks of relentless assault, the humans reached the central command hub. Dreadnoughts fired their heaviest weapons, striking orbital fortifications while frigates and carriers unleashed volleys of drones. Boarding teams captured the command station, turning the Empire's nerve center into a human-controlled outpost. From the flagship, General Vey surveyed the operation. The enemy had been powerful, proud, and confident. They had thought humanity could be crushed. Now their command structures lay in ruins, their fleets scattered, and their empire humbled. Humanity had not only survived, they had struck back with a force that reshaped the galaxy's understanding of human potential. The message was clear. Earth had risen. Humans were no longer a species to be underestimated, a young civilization still learning its place in the stars. They were a force of ingenuity, courage, and unrelenting determination, and the wrath of humanity, once provoked, could not be stopped. The battle was won, but the war and humanity's legend had only begun. The war was over, but the echoes of its fury resonated across the galaxy. The enemy empire, once arrogant and unchallenged, had surrendered. Its fleets scattered, its command centers captured or destroyed, and its colonies now under human oversight. The empire had learned a lesson it would never forget. Humanity could not be ignored. On Earth, the people watched news feeds with a mix of awe and relief. Billions had lived through the attack, survived near annihilation, and witnessed their species rise to heights no one had imagined. The 12 missiles that had once threatened to erase humanity had instead awakened a force unlike any the galaxy had seen. Humanity had not merely defended itself, it had redefined what it meant to be human. General Arya Vey stood on the bridge of the flagship, now orbiting the conquered core system. She gazed at the stars, her expression calm yet resolute. "They thought they could destroy us with 12 missiles," she said, her voice steady over the fleet's comms. "They were wrong. Humanity survives. Humanity prevails. Humanity will not be forgotten." Every ship in the fleet bore the marks of the campaign. Some were scarred by battle, hulls pocked with craters from alien fire. Others gleamed with new modifications, weapons integrated from captured technology, shields strengthened by human innovation. Each vessel was a testament to the species that had risen from near extinction to become a galactic power in its own right. Across the solar system, the human population celebrated, but with the tempered joy of a species that understood sacrifice. Families reunited, engineers returned to their labs, and soldiers stood watch over the planets they had fought to protect. Humanity had learned that victory came not without cost, but every life lost, every ship destroyed had contributed to something greater: survival, pride, and a legacy that would echo across generations. The Galactic Council, initially hesitant to intervene, convened to acknowledge humanity's unprecedented achievement. Delegates spoke of courage, ingenuity, and determination. Some species, once dismissive of Earth, now offered alliances, trade agreements, and open recognition. Humanity had earned a place among the stars not by begging for respect, but by taking it through resilience, strategy, and unyielding spirit. Even former rivals paused to reconsider the young species they had underestimated. Across the galaxy, the legend of Earth's response to the 12 missiles spread. A planet attacked, a species nearly extinguished, yet rising with unmatched ingenuity and unbreakable resolve. Tales of human pilots weaving through asteroid fields, engineers repurposing alien weapons mid-battle, and civilians volunteering en masse became common knowledge. For humanity, the victory was not simply about glory or power. It was about survival and recognition. For centuries, humans had been considered weak, primitive, and reckless. Now they were a force that demanded acknowledgement. The galaxy had learned a vital lesson. The species that had once been underestimated could not only defend itself, but shape the fate of entire civilizations. In the aftermath, humans began rebuilding with purpose. The fleets returned to Earth for refit and repair, laboratories worked to perfect alien technology, and colonies expanded, fortified by lessons learned during the war. Humanity had changed. It was stronger, smarter, and more united than ever. Fear of annihilation had been transformed into determination to explore, to innovate, and to protect. From the vantage point of space, Earth shone like a beacon. The planet that had survived 12 missiles now guided a fleet that could traverse the stars with confidence. Humans looked outward, knowing that their place in the galaxy was no longer provisional. They had carved a path through adversity, and no empire, no fleet, no threat could diminish their resolve. General Vey issued a final message to all human forces and colonies. Remember what we endured. Remember what we achieved. Humanity will never bow to fear, never falter in the face of threat, and never forget the wrath that rose from our skis. We are Earth, we are human, and we will always stand among the stars. The galaxy listened, and in that moment, a young species had transformed into a legend. The humans who had survived 12 missiles had claimed their place in history, and the galaxy had learned that some forces, once awakened, could never be contained. Humanity had not only survived, they had triumphed. They had secured a place among the stars, not as subjects or spectators, but as a civilization that would forever remind the galaxy. To challenge Earth is to face a wrath that cannot be stopped.